The Human Rights Council. And UN Chief Ban Ki-moon is warning of a humanitarian crisis in the country, putting the number of refugees fleeing violence and chaos at well over 110,000, with many thousands more arriving by the hour. Supporters of Libya's opposition have reportedly moved anti-aircraft guns to the port of Benghazi in preparation, they say, for a possible attack from Gaddafi's forces. Opposition leaders there are calling for foreign airstrikes to bring down Libya's leader. Meanwhile, the United States and Britain are considering imposing no-fly zones over Libya, but it would be an extraordinarily complex process, top U.S. military chiefs have said. It comes as the U.S. moves ships and planes closer to Libya. Well, as we mentioned, the international community has been putting ever more pressure on Muammar Gaddafi's government. Let's go to Felicity Barr in London for more on that.
Thanks, Imran. Yes, 2 weapons are now being prepared to tackle what the European Union and the US sees as a cruel and unwanted leadership in Libya. They are military force and turning the financial screw. Well, all the time, the US and its allies in the EU and NATO have been discussing more aggressive options. The British Prime Minister, David Cameron, has reinforced his view that some form of military intervention should be in place. The favoured option appears to be a no-fly zone. And now countries right around the world are moving to freeze Gaddafi's assets. The US has frozen $30 billion of Libyan cash. Several European Union countries have done the same. At the weekend, Britain announced it was freezing $1.6 billion of Gaddafi's wealth. Austria's announced it has frozen at least $1.7 billion worth of assets, and $680 million have been suspended by Switzerland. Well, the latest on the military manoeuvres, here's Alan Fisher.
The faint aircraft noise, the smoke, the shouts. The Libyan Air Force apparently in action against its own people in the east of the country. This is what the UK, the US and others are trying to stop. While the politicians plan the military moves, US ships are being ordered into the area, planes are being put in place. UK Prime Minister David Cameron says nothing is being ruled out against Colonel Gaddafi.
It is not acceptable to have a situation where Colonel Gaddafi can be murdering his own people, using aeroplanes and helicopter gunships and the like, and we have to plan now to make sure if that happens we can do something to stop it.
The top option, a no-fly zone, fighter jets on patrol targeting Libyan aircraft ordered to attack protesters. Plan B, arming anti-government groups. Military assets, ships, planes, people are already on the move. The US has an aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise in the Red Sea. Near Naples is the HQ of the US 6th Fleet. 8 ships are there right now. The US also has an airbase at Aviano in Italy and a naval base at Rota in Spain. The British are further out, an airbase in Cyprus and a naval base in Gibraltar. And the French have a vast airbase at Istres.
There is very little that the international community can do at present. Very little. What it can simply do is seek to offer humanitarian support and get workers out of Libya. But what it can't do is get embroiled in what can end up being an open-ended civil war.
Britain and its NATO allies are looking at what it can do next to help the people of Libya. Obviously, there's a feeling that if they wait, then the situation might resolve itself. We could be in the final days of the Gaddafi regime. But if he hangs on, then they're going to have to do something, and difficult decisions will have to be made. Alan Fisher, AlJazeera, London.
Well, a German ship carrying more than 600 people from Libya has arrived in Malta. The ferry was chartered by a German oil industry company to rescue its employees as well as other foreign nationals who've been trying to flee the unrest. They travelled for 24 hours before reaching Malta. Those rescued are expected to return to their home countries on Wednesday. Now, another story which has been making the headlines is the resignation of Germany's defence minister. Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg stepped down following a prolonged scandal over his PhD thesis. Chancellor Angela Merkel said she accepted his resignation, quote, with a heavy heart. Paul Brennan reports.
The suave young Bavarian aristocrat was one of Germany's most popular government ministers and a darling of the country's conservative right. Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg had been tipped as a possible future leader, and he frequently topped opinion polls ahead of his boss Angela Merkel. But his carefully crafted reputation for honesty and integrity was undermined last month by the revelation that as much as 20% of his PhD thesis appeared to have been copied without attribution. Guttenberg has strongly denied deliberate plagiarism and at first tried to ride out the publicity storm. But with the scandal showing no sign of fading, Tuesday's resignation had become inevitable.
I have informed the Chancellor in a very friendly conversation that I am withdrawing from my political offices, and I have requested to be relieved of duty. This is the most painful step of my life. I'm not going only because of my erroneous doctoral thesis, although I understand that would be enough of a reason. The main reason is the question of whether I can still live up to the high requirements I set myself in carrying out my responsibilities.
Angela Merkel's initial support for her defence minister was a risky strategy, no doubt with an eye to securing Conservative votes in 3 crucial state elections later this month. But headlines such as Baron Cut and Paste had made Guttenberg more of a hindrance than a help in recent days. And if the university decides Guttenberg plagiarised deliberately, then he could yet be accused of an even more serious offence, of lying to Parliament. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera.
France's new foreign minister has officially taken over. Alain Juppé replaced Michel Alliot-Marie, who was forced to resign following a cabinet reshuffle on Sunday. She'd faced criticism following revelations over holidays she took in Tunisia and her ties with the ousted leader, Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. The French fashion house Christian Dior has fired its creative director John Galliano after a video emerged of the design and praising Hitler and making anti-Semitic remarks. Galliano has faced a string of accusations of racist and anti-Semitic slurs. He appeared at a Paris police station on Monday after claims that he racially insulted a couple in a Paris cafe and slapped one of them. Galliano had been at Dior for 14 years. He has denied the accusations. Now, the Afghan President Hamid Karzai is in London, where he's opened an exhibition of priceless artefacts from his home country. Afghanistan, at crossroads of the ancient world, showcases more than 200 objects from the National Museum in Kabul. And none of them would be here if it wasn't for the courage of a group of Afghans, as Charlie Angela explains.
These treasures have survived decades of shelling, looting and Taliban raids. Hidden for 14 years, they're now in the spotlight, part of an exhibition travelling the world, showing off the cultural richness of a country once at the heart of the Silk Road.
What these objects show is that Afghanistan lies literally at the crossroads of the ancient world, that you have a melting pot of cultures with commodities coming in from the neighbouring and distant regions and being used by different types of society in Afghanistan in antiquity.
Over 200 objects from the National Museum in Kabul are now on loan to the British Museum. Unearthed between 1937 and 1978, some date back to 2000 BC. There are columns and sculptures discovered at an ancient Greek city in the north of Afghanistan, medallions and ivories from a palace near Kabul, and a hoard of gold, including this